Good morning. How is everyone today? Good. There's so many kids. I love it. I'm going to show you a picture up here. It's about my story. My story is called The Black Telephone. And they're going to put a picture up. How many of you have a phone at home? Do you have a regular phone or is it just a cell phone? Just a cell phone. Okay, do you guys see that phone up there? That's a really old home phone. Before there were any cell phones, before there were cordless phones. And when you go home, ask your mom and dad or your grandma and grandpa to tell you how they used to make phone calls when they were little, okay? Because you would pick up the phone and there would be an operator, there would be a lady there, and she would say, "Who do you want to call?" And you would say, "Oh, I want to call my sister, her number is 105. And then the operator, the lady, would transfer you. That's her right there. She was working the switchboard is what it was called. So let's begin our story. My story is about a little boy named Wayne. And this is his story. When I was a young boy, my father had one of the first telephones in our neighborhood. I remember, we can go back to the previous picture. I remember the polished old case fastened to the wall. The shiny receiver hung on the side. That was the part you put next to your ear. And then the big round part in the front, that was where you talked. The shiny receiver hung on the side of the box. I was too little to reach the telephone, but I used to listen with fascination when my mom talked to it. Then I discovered that somewhere inside this wonderful box, there lived an amazing person. Her name was, information please? And there was nothing information please did not know. She could give you anybody's phone number. She could have you talk to anybody you wanted. And if you asked her, she would also tell you the correct time. I was amazed by this black box with this amazing person that lived in it. I would watch my mom talk on the phone and my dad. But one day, my mom was visiting the neighbor and I was home alone. And I was doing what I wasn't supposed to be doing. I was playing with my dad's toolbox. And while playing with my dad's toolbox, I hit my finger with the hammer. The pain was terrible. I wanted to cry, but nobody was home. Nobody was there to listen, to hug me, to kiss my boo-boo. So I went around the house and I thought, what am I going to do? And then I saw the telephone. And I thought, my mom always goes to the telephone when she has a question and when she needs something. So I pulled up a chair and I picked up the receiver and I said, information, please? I heard a small, clear voice, and she said, information. I cried into the phone, I hurt my finger. She said, well, is your mother home? Nobody's home but me. It hurts. She said, are you bleeding? No, but I hurt it with the hammer, and it hurts really bad. She said, do you have a freezer? And he said, yes. Why? She said, well, go to the freezer and take out some ice and put it on your finger. It'll feel better. So I did. And I said thank you and hung up. But after that day, every time I had a question, every time I needed anything, I picked up the phone and I said, information, please. One day, I was at preschool, and They were teaching us about geography. So I went home, and I could not figure out where Philadelphia was. So I picked up the phone, and I said, "Information, please." And she was there, and she told me where Philadelphia was. Another time, I told her about my pet chipmunk that I found in the park, but I didn't know what chipmunks eat. So she told me they eat fruit and nuts. Another time, my pet bird died. His name was Petey, and I was so sad. So I called her, and I said, "Why did my pet bird die? He sang so beautifully, and he brought joy to my family, and now he's just a little pile of feathers in the bottom of my cage." She must have sensed my concern. She said, "Well, sometimes that happens." And she said, "Wayne, always remember that there are other worlds to sing in." Another time, I called, "Information, please." The same familiar voice answered. He goes, "How do I spell fix?" I don't know how to spell fix. Do you guys know how to spell fix? She said, "It's F-I-X." Some time went by, and I always made sure to call her when I had any questions. But then something happened. When I was 9 years old, we moved from Oregon to Boston, Massachusetts. And in our new house, we didn't have the same phone. Our new phone was shiny and smaller, and I knew I could never talk to Information Please again. Time went by, and my sister went to college, and I went to college, and my sister went to college in Oregon. So I went to visit her once, and I called her, and we talked on the phone from the airport, and then I remembered Information Please. So I picked up the phone, and I called the old number to Information from my old hometown. And I didn't know what I was going to say, so I said, "Information, please," and then I heard her voice. She said, "This is Information," and I recognized it. And I said, "How do you spell fix?" And there was a pause and a little giggle, and she said, "I take it your finger has healed, right? It doesn't hurt anymore." And I talked to her, and it was very nice. And I said to her, "You know, when I was little, I didn't understand, but you were so nice to me. You always took the time to answer my question. You were never impatient. You always spoke nicely to me. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate it, how much I appreciate that you took your time to always answer my questions so nicely." And the lady said, "You have no idea." She said, "I never had any children, and I loved it when you would call me. I really enjoyed all the questions you would ask me." She said, "This is Wayne, right?" And he said, "Yes." She said, "My name is Sally." She said, "If you ever happen to be in this area again, call me. I would love to hear from you." And so I remember that. Time went by, and I went back to Boston. There was some time that passed, and then about 6 months later, I was in Oregon again. And I said, "Oh, let me call Sally." So I call her, pick up the phone, and I say, "Information, please." And I get, "Information?" It was not her voice. It was somebody else. And I said, "Is Sally there?" And she said, "Are you a friend of Sally's?" And Wayne said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Well, I'm so sorry to tell you this," she said, "but Sally has been very sick lately, and she only worked part-time, and now she doesn't work here anymore. she passed away, and I was so sad. And she said, by the way, is your name Wayne? And he said, yes. How did you know? And she said, well, Sally left a note. And she said, if Wayne ever calls, tell him this. Tell him that there will be other worlds to sing in. And he remembered that that is what she told him about the little bird of his that died. And what does this mean to you, boys and girls? Do you have somebody that you can always talk to when you need to? Do you know that you can always pray to Jesus and tell him about all your little hurts and pains? And you can tell him when you're sad. And you can tell him when you miss your friends or when you're struggling in school. Wayne had information, please, and she was an actual person. And in the next picture I'll show you, this could have been Sally. Let's see. See? She would listen on the phone, and they never met. They never saw each other, but they had a special bond, and you can have that special bond. And always remember to be kind to others, because you never know how much you influence them. They might influence you, but you will influence them as well. So I want you guys to always remember that you have someone you can talk to. All right. Thank you so much for listening.